It's interesting how a bad interview or like being rejected can make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself.
Like, what am I good at? I gotta like just figure that out and like go for those jobs.
Welcome to Job Search Stories. I'm Jen, a career coach and your new go-to gal for all things career advice.
And I'm Gina. I'm an expert on all things job seeker here at Indeed. And together, we're gonna help you navigate this crazy world of job searching and hopefully get you your next job.
Yeah, and in today's episode, we're going to be digging into how to deal with rejection in the job search.
Got a little experience with that. Not too much, but...
Not too much. When was the last time you were rejected?
So I wasn't like looking for a job, but someone like recommended something to me. Mm-hmm. Their friend was hiring and they were like, hey, like, I know you're a little not too into the job you're working right now. This person is hiring. You can talk to them. I was not qualified for that job, like at all.
Did you do like a formal application or was it just like a conversation to see if you could be a good fit?
Yeah, it was literally that. It was the second one. And it was basically just, they asked me like all the questions, typical interview. And like when it came to the like competencies around like the role, I wasn't qualified. I was not qualified for that. So I knew I was going to get rejected.
Did you realize you weren't qualified just as the conversation was going?
Yeah, like as it went on, I was like...
Isn't that like the worst feeling where you can like feel it setting in?
I mean, I was literally sitting there and I was like, dang, well, I'm not going to get this job. And I'm going to have to stay at the job that I'm at. And I think it's because I'm used to like an interviewer being like super enthusiastic about my interview.
I can imagine.
This woman was like straight blank face the entire time. And I was like, maybe she's having a bad day. But no, this is just a bad interview. Yeah. This is just not a good interview.
Was it one that you feel like you were prepared for? Or did you know enough about the role going in?
I was prepared because I sat there and did like a lot of like one-on-ones with the person who recommended me for the role. And she was like, yeah, like this is what the role is. Similar to what I do. I feel like you could kind of pick it up. And like I was used to being able to pick things up. This was not something that was in my wheelhouse.
Okay.
So,
all right. Yeah. So situation, you're in the interviewing stage, finding out it's not going to work out for you.
It's not going to work out. And, you know, I just accepted that. I mean, obviously, I think about it to this day.
So it was memorable. It was memorable for you.
It was memorable. I think that was kind of like a turning point where I was like, dang, like, what am I good at? I got to like just figure that out and like go for those jobs. You know?
It's interesting how a bad interview or like being rejected can make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember when I was first moving. I was first moving to Austin and I had been working in retail. I'd worked in retail for over 10 years. Yeah. And I knew with the move that I was ready to try something else. Yeah. So I was applying for like all the things. I knew an area I wanted to work in. I wanted to get into higher ed. But like the types of roles were kind of like all over the place. And so it was one of those situations where I was applying for a lot and not hearing back from anything because it was there was like no strategy whatsoever.
Yeah. That's a different type of rejection though, if you think about it, like applying and then like literally never hearing back.
Oh yeah.
You don't even get to have the conversation and like
it's that
sell
black
yourself.
Hole we talk about, right?
Yeah, the black hole.
It's immediate rejection.
Yeah. And you're like, you realize you're like, oh, I'm not qualified. Like, you're like, they don't even want me. They don't even want to talk to me.
They don't want me. But honestly, it was one of the situations too where it's like, I don't even know that is something that I would have really wanted. Yeah. I just know I need a job.
Yeah. I feel that. I mean, I think the rejection when you're applying kind of like, not out of desperation, but when you're like, oh, I really need a job. Yeah. And that rejection is like a really like different type of rejection because you really are like questioning your reality. You're like...
Yeah. I've worked with people who have experienced rejection during the offer stage. Yeah. And that is some really tough rejection to get through because you've already gone through the process of, you know, however many rounds of interviewing, you're kind of invested, right? You're already now picturing yourself in a role. Yeah. And then to get that rejection so late in the game. Yeah. That's a pretty tough one to get over.
I think that would like kill me.
How do I bounce back from here?
Honestly, like I remember there was like a job I was interviewing for and there was like so many rounds of like interviews and assignments and all that stuff. And like I remember telling my friends, I was like, if they reject me, I'm going to be so upset because I've done so much. And like I was—
the investment, right?
It was the investment. And I was like, I knew this is the role for me. Like I knew I wanted it. And so I was like, if I don't get this, I am going to have to like reevaluate my entire life if I'm not qualified for this job that I feel like is meant for me.
But you got that one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you didn't have to experience that type of rejection.
It was the black hole. Yeah. It was just like
Yeah.
that black hole like anxiety where you're just like, oh man, like I was like staying up late at night.
Yeah.
Couldn't sleep. Like was sending follow-up emails to the hiring manager every time I did an assignment or an interview. It was like, I had such a great conversation.
You know
like,
what?
I was
follow-up goes a long way.
Yeah.
They're not mad at that.
We'll talk about
they
that.
Appreciate that
In another episode. Follow up.
For sure.
All that fun stuff.
Well, do you think rejection gets easier over time? Like, has it gotten easier for you just as you've grown in your career?
It doesn't happen too often. But no, I don't know. I think it's more of like like you come to a place of acceptance. It's like you can't really be upset because they're looking for the right fit. And if you're not the right fit, it's kind of like, got to be okay with that. But like, what about you? Like, how do you feel you deal with rejection now compared to when you first started?
Yeah, I mean, the type of rejection that I'm usually working through now is just helping other people through just what they're experiencing in their job search. And I think it's just really natural for it to feel a little bit personal because it's you're putting yourself out there, right? And then it is just sometimes difficult to reset and think, like, okay, this is almost never personal. It's like always professional to where, like you said, they're looking for the right person based on skills, qualifications. And so there are just certain instances where even when you are qualified, you know, maybe there's somebody who has even more qualifications or maybe that person is just better at explaining or demonstrating their qualifications. And so I think it just comes down to really thinking about what are the parts in the job search that you can control yourself and just knowing that sometimes there are things that you can't.
I think that's kind of the hardest part too, though, because it's like you feel like you can't control anything because you're just waiting to hear back from someone to tell you like, you got it, or we want to talk to you. So I don't know. I think that like rejection is always going to be hard, but it's kind of one of those things where you're like, it's inevitable sometimes.
It's inevitable sometimes. I mean, if you think about it, like one common reason that people get rejected that I think a lot of people forget about or maybe just don't know about is, you know, they'll see a position posted, it'll be up for a few days and then it'll just be pulled down. And it's like, well, I already applied, but I haven't heard anything from it. A lot of companies have to post roles. They have, even if they already know they're going to hire somebody internally, they still have to post it because it's an HR guideline. You know, they've got to make it open to the public. And so you could be a qualified candidate, but they might have already had somebody identified for the position. And so it's like in situations like that, you don't necessarily always have a chance.
Right. I mean, overall, I feel like there's like so many aspects to rejection. So I feel like we should kind of talk about that. Like, why does it feel like so personal? Like, why do you think people take it so personal?
Because it's you, right? Right. You're putting yourself out there. And so I think especially if you're at the job interview stage, you know, a resume is one thing. You submit it, maybe it just, you know, never even got to a recruiting manager. They received so many applications. You know, you're a little bit detached from the process in that way. But especially once you get into the interviewing stages, like that's where it really feels like, okay, well, why wasn't I good enough? You know, why wasn't I? I
mean, that's a good tip right there. Just realizing that, like, you know, you'll find something. You'll find something
for sure. I mean, millions of jobs are posted, right? I mean, we see millions of jobs posted on Indeed. And so there are other opportunities out there. So the best thing that you can do is just feel the emotions, feel a little bit of rejection, but don't let that stop you from continuing on your search.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I feel like there's times where like I got rejected at the, you know, apply stage. And I was like, well, I'm never looking for another job again. I'm just going to stay at this job forever. Like, that's how I felt. Because I wasn't like applying because I had lost a job or like because I was laid off. Like I was applying because I was just like, I don't know if I want to be here anymore. And then I was like, well, if I'm not qualified for other jobs, I'm just going to stay at this job forever.
It's going to stay.
Yeah.
No, I think one thing that you've mentioned before, Gina, which I think is always just really good advice, and I know you mentioned this in another episode, but just to call back to it, just thinking about self-motivation.
Yeah.
Right? And how important it is to kind of remind yourself that nobody else is going to do this for you.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's going to be able to apply, like send your resume in for the perfect fit job. It's really up to you to continue to kind of look and find those opportunities and continue putting yourself out there. So it is a little bit like dating in a sense where you just gotta
find the right
You gotta find the right one. You gotta open yourself up to new opportunities.
Yeah. Speed dating for job applications.
They're like career fairs, job fairs.
You're right. That exists.
They're there.
Exists. Well, I feel like you will be the perfect person to give this nugget of advice. But like, how do you feel like you can kind of put yourself back out there after you've already been like rejected? Like, let's say it's from your quote unquote dream job, if those exist.
Yeah.
How do you get back in the game?
Yeah, I think it's, again, like, let's give yourself some time to grieve, right? I think it's really natural to process and feel those emotions.
Yeah.
But then jump back in there slowly. Really setting those short-term goals for yourself are really helpful. Being able to just say, okay, I'm just going to apply for maybe one job today. Maybe I'll apply for a couple tomorrow if you're in an active job search.
Yeah.
What I think is really helpful too is to reflect and kind of see where maybe it went wrong. Because I think that's part of the issue, and that's one thing that prevents people from moving on is not understanding why they were rejected.
Yeah.
And so just thinking about the common reasons why you could be experiencing rejection.
Like, what are those reasons?
A really top one is actually not filling out the application all the way. So either there's missing information in the application, or maybe they asked for a particular material that you didn't provide. Cover letters are one where people don't want to write them sometimes.
They suck.
They don't want to write them because they think nobody's going to read them.
Yeah.
But if it's a required piece, you should send it for sure. Because if they don't, then your application isn't completely filled out and it's going to get immediately rejected.
Yeah.
Another is not having those required skills or experience that they're looking for specifically laid out on your resume.
Yeah.
If they can't see kind of right away why you're qualified for the role, they may not take the time to interview you.
Yeah.
And sometimes some basic formatting issues can really prevent you from getting a job, because if you've got pictures, graphs, information in tables, if you're using more than one column, not every applicant tracking system is going to be able to parse that.
Yeah.
They're all different. They have different capabilities. And so sometimes, even though you think you've got everything on there, it may not even be read.
Yeah. Yeah. Make it as simple as possible. Because I feel like that's one thing, is like making sure that like everything is not perfect, but just making sure that you're taking the time to like carefully fill out an application. Because I feel like a lot of people are probably like, plug and play and just, I'm done with it.
I'm going to submit my application to a lot of different places. And it's possible, right? Like, you can submit it everywhere, but the probability that you may not get called for an opportunity will just go up. It just goes higher.
Yeah. I mean, has anyone in your life given you like good advice about like job rejection in general?
Yeah. For me, I think working in the field that I'm in, I have been able to kind of peek behind the curtain, right? You know, I'm able to talk to recruiters. I've been in recruiting, working with a lot of job seekers.
Yeah.
And I would just say, whenever you can, it's really helpful to just self-diagnose whenever you can. So really thinking about, okay, what stage in this job search am I being rejected?
Yeah.
If you know you're not getting any calls for roles, 9 times out of 10, the issue is with your resume.
Yeah.
If you know you're getting to the interview stage, but you're not getting callbacks for second round or third rounds, okay, it could be your interview prep. Maybe you're not addressing you're not fully answering the questions, or you're giving information that's not quite relevant to the role.
Yeah.
And then if it's happening at the offer negotiation stage, maybe you need to work on your negotiation skills. You know, maybe you didn't do enough preparation in terms of really understanding what a reasonable like salary expectation could be, and it's not a good fit in that stage. There are a lot of things that you can do as an individual to kind of self-assess, see what the issue is, and then continue to work on it. but then also knowing, again, there are just going to be some things that are outside of your control.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
So you can prepare, but that doesn't mean that it will prevent rejection. I feel like there's like probably some like things that we can talk about in terms of like what the next steps are after rejection, because sometimes there's ways around it. I think we maybe talked about this on a previous episode, but a coworker who was rejected from a job and then reached out to the hiring manager and got the job. So do you feel like you should ask for feedback or like reach out if you've been rejected?
Yeah. So I've been asked this before by job seekers, and there is no harm in asking, but ask with the expectation that you might not get feedback.
Yeah, like, is it weird? Like, that's the question. Like, is it weird to be like, you rejected me?
Oh, no.
I am pissed.
Well, I think if you're going to say it like that, you're definitely probably not going to get a response back.
Right.
But a really good way to phrase it is to thank the recruiter for their time.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I really appreciate you following up with me. Really sad to hear that this wasn't the right opportunity, but as you know, I'm actively looking for a role. Mm-hmm. So if there's any feedback that you can provide that will help me grow and help me learn, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, you said that great.
It's almost like I've said it before.
Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah, and just know that actually some company policies will prevent recruiters from giving that type of feedback.
Yeah.
I do know of companies that they have a lot of respect for the job seekers. And so they do actually give some feedback. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, again, ask, you never know. Don't be surprised if they don't. But if you find yourself in a situation where you're working with a recruiter, don't wait until you're rejected to ask for feedback.
Yeah.
Recruiters are your friends. And I will say, I have one of my close friends is an active recruiter, and her number one pet peeve is that the people that she works with do not listen to the feedback that she gives.
Yeah.
And this is like day one on the screening call. She will tell them, this is what you talk about. That's really great because this is what the hiring managers are looking for. Mm-hmm. This is what you said, which I think you can avoid, and just like you don't even need to bring that up.
Yeah.
And they don't do it. They don't listen.
Yeah.
So just tip, if a recruiter tells you what you shouldn't talk about, definitely what to avoid.
Yeah.
Avoid those things. Like they really are trying to help you out.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've definitely got like pretty good feedback from recruiters in the past that like it didn't land me at the job. Like it wasn't like it was bad feedback. Yeah. It was just also like I didn't even get kind of past that apply stage because they were like, yeah, like you just weren't the best fit compared to the other applicants. But they did give me like useful feedback that I used like later on in my career for like other applications. Yeah. And also it helped me realize like, oh, like, yeah, that's not the like role for me. Like those type of jobs are not for me. And it was interesting just kind of like the recruiter like looking at my resume and saying like, hey, like if this is your experience, these are probably jobs you should go for, like these type of jobs. And I'm like,
a helpful recruiter.
Oh my gosh. I was like, shout out to her. I'm not going to say her name, but she was great. We had a great conversation and she really helped me like gain perspective. So
I love that. I mean, it is really helpful. And I think that's something to kind of keep in mind is the feedback that you get, while some of it will be role specific, especially if they're talking about what a particular hiring manager is looking for.
Yeah.
If you're applying for those types of roles at other companies, that could be experience that they want to hear about too.
Right.
So absolutely apply that to all different stages.
Recruiters doing the best work.
They're here to help.
Here to help. So is there anything that you feel like someone can do better and like how to get better at job searching? Like, do you feel like it's just like after rejection, what's the next thing to like improve?
Yeah. Self-diagnosing, like I said, is good. Asking for feedback. I think it's just utilizing your network. Again, you can utilize them in a couple of ways. You can look for opportunities to still kind of connect with people to find new opportunities that you can apply for, but also get some unbiased feedback from them.
Yeah.
A great way, again, like if you've kind of done this diagnosis and you're like, I know I need to work on my resume. Who do I get to review it? A friend or a family member could be really good. Yeah. As long as they are going to be the person to give you some truthful feedback.
Yeah.
Because if they're just going to be the kind of person to be like, oh no, this looks great. I don't understand why you're not getting callbacks.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to help you in the way that it could, right?
Yeah.
You got to be able to really look at a document and say, okay, what's missing?
Yeah.
And there are different ways that you can do that. So Gina, if you were going to have a friend review your resume.
You're the friend. You're reviewing my resume.
I'm going to review your resume.
Yeah.
I'm going to say if you have a friend who's not a career coach.
Okay.
Who's going to review your resume.
Okay. So it can't be you.
Can't be me.
Yeah.
Here's some things that you can ask them to look for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One, assess your formatting.
One.
Like we said, pictures, tables, graphs, columns. These things can sometimes not be read by an applicant tracking system.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see that, could be why you're not getting, those callbacks.
Yep.
Next thing that they should do is, without knowing necessarily what role you're applying for, have them review the top third of your resume.
Okay.
So have them focus in on the professional summary and have them look at your most recent job description and read through the bullet points and read through the information that you've provided.
Right.
And then have them tell you, what jobs do you think I'm applying for?
Yeah.
Because if they're not able to get it right away that you're looking for marketing manager roles or software engineering roles in a particular industry where you're using a certain tech stack, if they're not getting that, a recruiter's not getting it, and an applicant tracking system's not getting it.
My friends still don't know what I do. I just want to put that out there. They have no idea.
They have no idea what you do.
What my job is.
We'll see what kind of guesses they could make. That might be just an interesting experience.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think I'm just going to do that for fun. Like just send my resume to my friends and be like, what do you think my job is?
What do you think my job is?
Yeah.
And then kind of a third thing that you can do is, if you already have a job that you're applying for, have them look at the job description and then have them compare it to your resume. Are they finding the keywords or the experience that they know you have, or asking you, hey, do you have this experience? If so, why is it not on your resume?
Yeah.
Just have them do a few little exercises with you.
Yeah.
And you don't need professional help. You can do so much on your own.
Is there a way for you to ask recruiters, or let's say the hiring manager? Because I feel like sometimes there is like some ambiguity, which we'll get into the difference between recruiters and hiring managers. Who's who.
Yeah.
But do you feel like it's like weird to be like, hey, can you look at my resume or my cover letter and tell me what went wrong?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't ask it during the interview process.
Yeah.
You can wait for after. And again, it's like, thinking about at what point in the process you were rejected and you were let go. Yeah. If you're actively interviewing, they're likely, are not going to give that type of feedback.
Yeah.
No harm in asking, but they may not.
I don't like being embarrassed though. So I just want
They're going to be like, you should have asked somebody before you applied.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, you want this job. You want something from me right now.
Yeah.
And you're going to ask me if you're doing good enough yet?
Yeah. Sometimes people need to be humbled.
I don't know.
Speaking of that, do you feel like there's any way that like after you were rejected for something that you like hyped yourself up, or like how you got back into it after rejection?
Honestly, for me, when I was going through the process of finding a new job and I wasn't able to, the kind of quickest recovery for me was getting a call back for another job.
Yeah,
right?
That's all the hype you need.
So you're like, you didn't find value in me, but this job
Another person did, yeah.
They see my value.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what you need, right? And those will come. That'll come with time. I mean, what about you?
I don't know. Like, I feel like I really told myself, like, that situation I was telling you about with like, oh, I was not qualified for this job. I really told myself, I was like, yeah, I wasn't qualified for this job. I don't want to do a job I'm not qualified for. Like, that's okay. Like, that I didn't get this job that I wasn't the right fit for. So I kind of hyped myself up by being like, well, I wasn't fit for this job, but I'm going to be fit for something else.
Yeah. And something else that you can do kind of like while you're waiting for the next call is really just to focus on what you've learned during that experience, right?
Yeah.
Again, if you're doing this kind of self-diagnosis and saying like, okay, I learned maybe my resume wasn't fully tailored for the role.
Right.
I can improve on that next time. I learned that when somebody asks me to tell them about myself, I shouldn't talk for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I should really pare that down, right? Like, what are these different things that you can learn about the process and then apply that for the next one? Because then you didn't waste any time, right? It was still a valuable experience for you.
Yeah. It's practice.
Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. Let's talk about the ATS because I feel like people, you hear it, recruiters, career coaches, they're saying it. What is it first? We do have a video on it, but
we're gonna
talk about it now.
Let's talk about it. So an ATS, or an applicant tracking system, is software that companies use to help source qualified candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And so a common misconception when people think about an applicant tracking system is they think that if their resume isn't right, that it's actually going to be rejected, like thrown out of the pile, per se. But it actually isn't. What an ATS really does is it uses almost a ranking system. So where you have a resume that has more of those key skills and qualifications, those become they then surface to the top of the pile. So it ranks them based off of their qualifications. And this is why we say it's really important to look at a job description, because when you think about, we use the term ATS keywords. If you're in marketing, you might use think about SEO and search engine optimization and keywords, right? They're really those skills and qualifications that the hiring manager is looking for and has said, this is what's needed to be able to be successful in this role. So that could be things like languages, both if it's important for somebody to be bilingual, having your proficiency speaking other language on a resume could be important, and that could be a qualifier. Things like specific technologies, working with specific programs, if you're a software engineer, coding in specific languages. Could even be soft skills. If you're applying for management roles, it could be leadership, growth management or change management. All of these kind of things that are listed in a job description could potentially be keywords that are used.
I mean, you also mentioned the things that you need to have on your resume to pass an ATS. What are those things? The top things where it's you need to do this, your resume will get through an ATS, obviously, if you are qualified.
Yes. So I'm going to jump into what all of these things are, but I'm actually going to do a really quick plug for an Indeed product because
love that.
We make this really simple for you. So Indeed actually has what's called an instant resume scan. So when you upload your resume into your Indeed profile, what it does is it actually scans it and shows you the way that your resume could be parsed by an ATS. And I say could be because there are lots of different kinds of ATS systems out there. And so they all work a little bit differently. But this one kind of shows you generally how it's picking up your information. So what it's selecting for your education, what it's selecting for your key skills or your experience, your contact information. I've seen so many resumes that don't have contact information.
How are they supposed to contact you?
It's a great question. It's a great question you should ask yourself. They put the name, but then there's no
phone number, no email,
no email address.
Well, I feel like
key components. You should definitely put those on a resume.
I think the younger generation's a little scared. Don't want to give their number out to just anybody.
One thing you don't need is a physical address. I do see this quite a bit where people are still putting an actual, here's my number, address, city, state, resume, just say city, state. If you're looking for remote opportunities, you can actually just put remote or exclude that information. But when we think about an ATS, formatting is key. Formatting is really key. So simplicity is better. It's easier to scan, easier to read. So you're looking for, like I said, no columns, or one column, I should say, single column. There's the really nice resume format, which you've probably seen before, where you've got kind of your nice kind of slender column over here, where you might put your contact information, your skills, and your education, and then you save the whole right side of your document for experience.
I don't do that.
You don't do that one? Good.
No,
because it's going to pass an ATS.
I'm when you kept saying columns, I was like, who does that?
People do that.
I think that's also maybe you should be creating a portfolio and then also have a resume. I think that's that's more of a creative person thing, but maybe that's will help people mitigate the whole, I want to put pretty colors and graphs and columns.
Well, other thing, because when we talk about contact information, people sometimes put that information in a header. So headers and footers, those sometimes don't parse either.
Ooh,
so if you
I did not know
put that information
in
a header and you're like, that's my name, phone number and email, well, that information could be totally omitted.
Oh, no.
So that might show as missing information. So that's really important. Again, charts, skills. I've seen in skills sections where it looks nice.
Yeah.
People will put little bar graphs or they might rate their own skills and say, something like client pitches or something. And they'll give themselves 5 stars. Or they'll talk about like outbound marketing and they'll give themselves 3 stars. First of all, if you're not going to rate yourself a 5 on your own resume, maybe leave that skill off.
Maybe you aren't confident in your skills.
You need to be more confident in your skills.
Oh my
or
gosh.
don't give yourself a rating. Generally, actually, don't give yourself a rating. That's really the advice.
So like what? You've seen people like put bar graphs and they're like, oh, this piece of pie is bigger because I'm really good at this. And this is smaller because I'm not that good at it.
Yeah.
Ooh. That seems like a not like good self-promotion.
I've seen a lot of things.
I can tell.
I've seen and I've survived and I'm here to tell the tales.
Yes. You're a survivor. Love that.
So Gina, I've talked a bit about the different stages in the application or the job search in which you can be rejected, right? Definitely know when you get to the salary negotiation and you don't get it, that's tough, right? Because you're fully invested. But even in the early stages, it can kind of hurt, right?
It all hurts.
Hear it from people that we work with all the time that they are just experiencing being ghosted at the application level, right? Like being ghosted by recruiters. Or maybe they've talked to a recruiter and then eventually the recruiter just stops calling. What do you do in that situation? Why does it hurt so bad?
I mean, man, being ghosted in any part of your life sucks. I would know. But I don't know because I feel like there's been times where like I was ghosted. I think I talked about this, but when I had a recruiter that was really, really helpful and she's like, next opportunity, I'm gonna hit you up. I have not heard from her since. So like that was hurtful because I was like, oh, like I thought this person was my friend. Like I thought we were
made a connection.
Like there was a connection.
And we were bonded.
She was, but I think that's also like some people probably don't know the difference between a career coach and a recruiter. So that also might be, maybe we need to break that ambiguity down because I really thought that this woman was going to like change my life and help me find my next job. But I think that hurts so bad when it's like, oh, like, I thought I was doing pretty good. Or let's say, the recruiter went back when you negotiated salary and then you get ghosted. It's like, dang, did I ask for too much money? Like, I think it hurts so bad because you're like, I thought everything was going good.
I thought we were good.
Yeah.
Right?
I thought we were good. That's why ghosting hurts in general is like, you think everything is fine.
Right.
And then you're like, I guess it wasn't.
Yeah, a common ghosting scenario that I have heard from people is when you're talking to a recruiter and they're like, they do the screening call. They say, this sounds great. I'm going to pass your information along to the hiring manager. It'll be a couple of days.
Yeah.
A couple of days go by, don't hear anything. Then maybe they send an email as a follow-up and just say, hey, just want to let you know I'm still interested in the role. Really looking forward to hearing about next steps and, an interview. Maybe they get a reply back and the recruiter buys a little more time and is like, oh, yeah, they're just really busy, but we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Or maybe even sometimes they just don't even get a reply back.
The lies. Like, I just feel like that's so hurtful. And like, I get it. Like, everything's business, like, I think like we talked about this a lot, like, don't make it personal. But like, sometimes you can't help it because you're like, this was my big break. Like, this was what was going to set me up for success in the rest of my life, like getting this job. And when a recruiter is just like, can't be bothered, you're kind of like, sad.
Yeah. And it's like, that they're working, or you may not know, but, a lot of times recruiters are working to fill a large number of roles or they're talking to a lot of candidates. And so, the previous recruiter in me sometimes wants to give people a pass and say, maybe they had the best intentions and they really did want to reach out to you.
Yeah.
But then the hurt job seeker in me says they could have done better. Like, all you needed to do was send an email and say, you know what? Appreciate you following up, but we decided to go another direction. Thank you for your time.
I think the moral of the story is give recruiters a break, give yourself a break. Seriously.
We're all just doing the best we can.
We're all just doing the best we can with what we've got. But I hope that's a little reassuring to people because like, recruiters are people too.
They're people too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't feel super confident when I get rejected from things. Like, I just feel like it like this little knock at my self-confidence. Do you feel like there's a way to regain that confidence after you have been brought down a few pegs?
I think you just have to really, again, if we think about the job search, and we talked about this in a previous episode about just how isolating it can feel, right?
Yeah.
And so one, turn to your friends and family. Like, have a little bit of a commiseration. Like what is it called? Oh my God, I can't pronounce it.
I don't know words, so don't ask me.
Commiseration. Commiserating?
We'll Google it later.
Commiserating session.
A sad girl session.
Sad girl session.
Sad
you know what?
girl.
Just have your moment.
Yeah.
Have your moment to feel the feelings.
Yeah.
You're entitled to them.
Mm-hmm.
Find your people in your safe space to just say, you know what? Maybe this wasn't right for me. I don't really like it. I'll find somebody who likes me.
Eat your snacks. Watch your shows. Cuddle up with somebody.
Go to your happy place.
Yeah.
But then get back on the job search.
Yeah.
Because it really is important for you to get back on the job search. So you don't want to take too much time. And again, not focusing on the bad things.
Yeah.
Really focusing on what you could potentially learn.
I mean, I feel like you kind of touch up on this, but like, what happens if you're just getting rejected a lot? Like, you're getting to all the stages and you're still like just feeling rejection after rejection after rejection.
Yeah. There's usually something that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of free tools out there for you.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you do feel like it's just like nothing is going right, right? Like, I'm getting to the same stage every single time. What is happening?
Yeah.
It is important to kind of ask for that unsolicited feedback and see like, okay,
what's going on?
What's good? Like, if this is what I'm saying, what is not resonating?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like it's like you kind of got to get the feedback to know like what is the issue. And
if you're not going to get it back from an employer like a recruiter, just being able to do that self-assessment and really just kind of be honest with yourself too.
Yeah.
And say, okay, did I really have all of the qualifications?
Yeah.
And if I did I really do the best that I could have in explaining what those qualifications were? Because again, there's kind of a reason certain things don't work out. And so you can, if you kind of go back and reflect, you might be able to find out what that was.
Yeah. Everything happens for a reason. It's true. You were quoting things in the last episode.
I quote things a lot. I'm
quotes.
like quoting and passing them off as like my own words of wisdom.
Yeah.
I wonder if people are going to find me out. I mean, you did just call me out.
Yeah.
So.
So I'm the one telling everyone if she says something insightful.
They're not her words.
They're not her words.
They're not her words of wisdom.
I feel like this is a really good time to take a question from a viewer. My favorite part.
Oh,
because you drop nuggets and you drop the quotes.
I drop quotes. This is another opportunity for me to pass off somebody else's quote as my own.
As your own.
And I'm going to relish that opportunity.
Victor has a question. So here it is. I'm getting rejected from jobs that I feel like my resume clearly shows I'm qualified for. I have basically everything they're looking for in terms of qualifications and even the keywords in my resume, but I'm still getting rejected without a chance to even interview. How do I stop getting rejected from jobs that I know I could excel at?
Yeah. Okay. So there are some key things that I'm hearing, right?
Yeah.
If you're getting rejected and you think, okay, my resume has all of the things, but it sounds like Victor's not even getting interviews, right? I'm going to take a wild guess and say that the issue is still the resume.
Maybe he has those graphs.
He's got the graphs. He's got a column. Look, y'all, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say I've seen a lot of resumes using different types of software where you can have a really nice background, you can put some really great shapes, and it looks graphically and like visually appealing.
Yeah.
And those types of resumes are great when you know you're going to be able to hand it directly to a person.
Okay.
So if it's not needing to pass through an applicant tracking system, sure, have a copy of that resume on hand. But when you're going to be submitting online, PDF is usually a good way to go. Look for that file format. Use a Microsoft Word, docx, whatever it would be. Single column format.
Yeah.
You may have the qualifications and experience. Check and see how often you're mentioning them. You don't want to keyword stuff a resume for sure, but you do want to make sure that You have those key skills listed in a skills section. Your professional summary is really strong.
Yeah.
Are you mentioning your years of experience? Are you mentioning key achievements and qualifications? Are you really selling yourself for this particular role right away? Because there's a really great stat, which you've probably heard before, that recruiters only spend 6 to 7 seconds looking at a resume.
Dang, I've never heard that.
You never heard that?
No.
So I was actually at a recruiting event giving a presentation on resumes at a college with some other employers there. And this employer that was on the panel said that she actually only spends 2 to 3 seconds looking at a resume. People don't have a lot of time, right?
It's true.
So, best bet, make sure it's formatted for an applicant tracking system. That way you know it's at least going to get through that.
Okay.
Because a large number of companies are using an ATS. They really are. So as much as we don't want to, we just have to realize we've got to format our documents to pass AI.
Yeah.
Then when you actually get to the recruiter, you've got to make sure that top third of your resume is spot on and really presenting yourself for the specific role.
Yeah. I mean, Victor, hope you get the next job.
I think Victor's going to do it. I feel really good about him.
With this advice.
How could he not?
Go, Victor. Well, that's it. That's all we have. That's all the time we have. And, we're here. We're hoping that if you need more job search advice, you'll drop a comment with any questions, any topic that you'd like us to discuss, and also just share your own stories and send us more questions because Jenn is a genius.
Please share stories with us.
Yeah.
I want to hear more.
Me too. So we'll see you next time. Next time we'll be talking about finding a job during economic uncertainty, like a recession.
I graduated during a recession. I have a lot to say about this.
And if you found any of this advice helpful, please make sure to subscribe and rate the podcast and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That's it.
All right. Thanks for watching.
And listening.
And listening.
If you're listening and not watching. Is that the thing? Do we answer the question?